Hey everybody, it's Always Bookin Comedy. I'm Mark Masters. We got Jeff Shaw here. We got a little bit of a audio issue we're trying to figure out. Jeff, just chime in once you can hear me. And Jeff's amazing. I'm so excited to see him. Cleveland-based, Cleveland rocks. Jeff rocks. 2025 rocks.
Yeah,
What a great year!
You might as well not talk to me. I can't even hear.
Okay.
I can't hear you.
How do I communicate this?
Let's go to the settings here.
His number to let him know that I am talking to the internet.
Okay, that's the problem.
I am talking to the internet.
Okay, check 1 2.
Check. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Steve. We're live right now, Jeff. Hey. Thank you. So you can hear me?
Yeah.
Amazing. We just did a couple pleasantries. Just said hello to everybody out there. We got to go live at a certain time, and we're.
I didn't know that. I thought we were going to do a sound check and all that.
Yeah. We're all good now. I said some nice things about you, and here we are. Jeff's with us. Excited to see him. How you been, buddy?
Good, man.
Good. How's 2025 treating you? We're not even a week in yet.
I just got home for the first time in a month, so.
That's nice. Is that nice? I assume that's nice.
No, it's not.
No, you want to get back on the road.
Well, it's difficult because I'm never home long enough. Like my work starts when I get home. The good part of my career is when I'm out on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult being home for 5 days. You can't even unpack.
Got it. It's not long enough. Yeah.
But it's good to see my mom and then like go to my home club and stuff like that.
Nice. That's amazing. How does that work? Do you schedule time with them in advance, or do you just show up and you're like royalty there, or what?
No, it all depends on what I have to do. The hardest part about traveling as much as I do is like a lot of times you don't have like I work mostly cruise ships, so I don't have good access to internet. So when I'm home, I have to do all the stuff that I can't do when I'm out working that I normally do during my work day, and then all kinds of errands and things like that. And so with my schedule, I have no idea at the time. Like I didn't even want to book 2 months out because I don't even know like a given day if I'll be up at 6 a.m. at the computer ready to rock it all day or sleep until 3.
Right.
Because I like sometimes I'll go 48 hours with no sleep. So it's hard to gauge, So I just play it by ear when I get home. I'll let people know that I'm home. But most of the time I have no time to go do anything. It's like from morning till night, working and then rushing out to the gym at 10 o'clock and then, starting the whole thing over. And then like when I leave for the airport, it's usually like 3 a.m. So I have to stay up all day, stay up all night, and then hit the airport at 4 a.m.
Are you a airline, you have status? Are you a status person?
Yeah, I have status on a couple of the airlines, not all of them, because it's as you know, it's getting harder and harder to get status because they keep upping their qualifications or their requirements, and a lot of the cruise lines I work for, they buy their airfares in bulk, so they're cheaper. So now they're not going by miles; they're going by how much you pay.
Ah, interesting. Wait, yeah. Does Cleveland is Cleveland a hub for anybody?
I'm not sure if it's a hub, but it has all the airlines in it, and okay. I get to go everywhere.
Okay, nice. So go ahead.
We got United, Delta, American,
nice.
And then Spirit and Frontier if Greyhound is booked.
Yeah. So 2024 just wrapped up. What was the best cruise you went on? Where'd you go that was the best?
Oh, well, it'd have to be a toss-up between my cruise to Belfast, Northern Ireland, and Dublin. I was supposed to join the Carnival Legend in Iceland, but I think that they, for some kind of reason, the country barred anybody from joining ships. So okay. They flew me into Belfast a day early, and I went sightseeing in Belfast. I did a show in Belfast. I found a local show online, I bought a ticket and I showed up and I could tell right away that the kid at the cashier was also a comic. I can tell from his vibe that he was, comic producer.
Sure.
And sure enough, the gang welcomed me with open arms, and I ended up going on and doing a set and hanging out with all the UK, well, the Northern Irish comics. That's part of the UK. And then I actually got a joke out of it. I said that I have in my act. I said I went to the Titanic Museum, which was built on the site of the shipyard where they built the Titanic, and several Carnival ships. And it was an amazing museum. But if you think about it, the Titanic Museum is basically an amazing shrine to a colossal failure. We have something similar where I live. It's called the Cleveland Browns gift shop. So I got to go to Belfast. I got to go to Dublin.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
Does that joke work in Ireland? Like, do they know the NFL well enough?
No, I wrote it in Ireland, and I did it on the cruise ship.
Yeah, and it works?
Oh, yeah, but it's all American audiences.
Okay. That's
it was Americans. It was Americans going, on their vacation.
Okay.
And then I also went to Portugal and Spain.
Cool.
It was great. And then I do Alaska a lot every year.
Oh, that's so cool. Do you ever do the like expeditions or whatever? Do you ever get off the ship?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What's your favorite thing? What's your
Yeah.
favorite thing to do in Alaska?
Well, the thing I always do, everywhere I go, I walk long distances, like 5 to 10 miles or more, listen to podcasts, and then write by talking into my my phone, and then seeing what any museum, big or small, that's open, and then like a gourmet coffee shop. And in Alaska, I have, like, in each city I go, I have my little routes, my little, walking routes, the restaurants I want to go to, the place to get my coffee, and then the different trails that I go hiking.
Do you see some creatures out there? Have you seen like a moose or a bear?
Oh, yeah, this really weird exotic species that I don't normally see in my normal life. I believe they're called children. I heard they can be quite feral at times.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you're in Alaska, they ask you to, although I've never seen a bear, they ask you to make sure that you don't hike by yourself, that there's other people. But when you're on an Alaska cruise, one of the ports isn't really a port. It's what you go up one of the arms, or it's like a fjord, and they call it the most popular one is called the Tracy Arm Fjord. And you go up, and you're going down this narrow, like, canal, basically, and you've got mountains on either side of you. So you go up on Lido Deck, and you see all the mountains, and, like, you'll see elk, moose, bears, and then when you get up to the glacier, if you're there, like, when it's kind of warm, like in the 70s, whatever, you'll see all the seals sunning themselves on the ice floe.
Oh, that's cool. That's neat. And it's a safe distance. I assume the bears can't like jump on the cruise ship.
No, they have to have a passport.
Yeah, sure. They'd have to go through security. Outstanding. Do you mostly work for Carnival, or do you work for?
Oh, well, I mostly work for Carnival just because they have the most work. I just did Christmas and New Year's on celebrity ships, and it was great. I got to go to Key West.
Okay.
And then they overnight you in Fort Lauderdale when you're doing the ship in Fort Lauderdale. And I was looking forward to, like, here's what a creature of the road I am. I'm in it for the art form, and I work hard, and I love the challenges of booking and the traveling and then meeting people and performing. But, like, I am like just like a hopeless sightseer and wanderer. So, like, even though I was going to be making good money on a cruise ship playing in front of thousands of people, I was excited about my layover in Fort Lauderdale because the hotel is across from a tri-rail station. They can take me down into, like, Miami and Coral Gables and Coconut Grove, or up to Boca, or up to West Palm Beach. And then there was one of those, like, pro bass shops right next to it, you know, and you can wander around and look at all the camping equipment.
Yeah.
And then there's like one of those outdoor shopping complexes with the actually Dania Point Improv and you know, the multiplex cinema and stuff. And then it got ruined because I was supposed to get there 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and the plane had all these mechanical issues. I didn't get to the hotel till 11 at night.
Oh no!
You know?
What a drag.
But yeah, so here's an interesting thing. I know this is called. A lot of people are interested in like what it's like to work cruises.
Sure.
This was an interesting. This run I did was a good example when the stars are aligned, or when you have a relationship with a cruise line, and you just catch people in a good mood. I don't know if because it was the holidays, but it was a case of where I was booked in a gig I had no business being booked for because that wasn't the right demographic for my act or my style of comedy. And everybody noticed it. And it was an issue at first, but I worked really hard to just recalibrate. Like I had to change all my sets around. I even went out and bought a different outfit because the audience wasn't buying how I was dressed. You know, and so I changed all my opening lines. I changed like the order. I threw out all kinds of different material. And when each time I made an effort, it really improved the shows. And so a lot of times they have no respect for comics, or they just don't want to be bothered. But I was lucky enough that because I had a relationship with the folks on board from previous cruises on different itineraries, that they were very supportive, and to make me know that it wasn't me, and they were very grateful that I was able to turn it around. And then what they ended up doing is they ended up switching me to a different ship and bringing another comedian, because these were short, like 3-day cruises, completely different. And instead of sending me home, they showed me the ultimate vote of confidence and sent me to one of their best ships in the fleet, like a special 2-week cruise where it's more fluent clientele. And there's actually more at stake, you know, having a bad show. And I ended up destroying. It was great. And that is always awesome when that happens, whether it's on land or at sea. And Carnival, that's a little more common because Carnival, the great thing about having almost 30 ships with a club on every ship is over the past 15 years, Carnival has been forced to learn about comedy. The other cruise lines don't need to care about comedy, do anything about comedy. There's enough comics. With 3,000 comics, you can find 10 that'll do good no matter what you throw at them. And they book those 10. You know, but Carnival is interested in, you know, a comedy and having a stable or a roster of comedians. And so they at least have an awareness that certain things can affect your show. Travel, the night of the shows, the size of the audience, the demographic of the cruise. They try hard to make sure that they match you with a demographic where your comedy will go over. And so the other cruise lines aren't as hip to that. So to be treated very nicely and to have them actually care and try to set me up for success by switching things around was a great way to both end and start my new year.
That's
and
awesome.
yeah, and I one thing I tried with Carnival, I wasn't entirely successful, was it's really in the interest of casinos, cruise lines, corporate gigs, any place that is not a traditional comedy venue that decides to produce comedy shows, present, you know, comedy to their guests, their passengers, their members, or whatever. The stuff that we comics complain about or are neurotic about or really care deeply about, and they're like, hey, do you mind doing this or whatever? And they're like, yeah, shut up. You know what I mean? What they don't understand is if they would just listen to us, we're not going to just make the show better for us. We're not just going to soothe our ego or our neuroses. The show is going to go better.
Can you give me some examples? Are you talking about like lighting, sound, seating?
Yeah, like you go to some some. I just went on this cruise line, Celebrity, and I had this big, beautiful LED screen backdrop with my name on it, like a box office, like marquee, like a theater, and I had all these like light projections on the stage. And I had world-class sound, and I killed. And when you show up, you have a sound check, and they'll match the lighting to your outfit. You bring in, tell them what you're wearing. They'll play whatever music you want. They'll be the mic stand will be at right height. They'll try to book you on nights where you're going to have a good audience. That doesn't always work out, and so you will be set up for success. There are some places where you go where they'll have the lights aimed wrong, or there's a crackle in the sound system, or the house lights are flashing because there's a problem with the wiring. And something that will distract the audience, or they'll have a bar right by the stage. They'll have blender drinks going right in the middle of or the waiters will walk right up in front of the comedian as soon as he walks on stage. First joke, and so going, "What do you want? What do you want?" So. And at first, with the Carnival, when I was helping set up their program, they thought I was nuts.
Yeah, I mean, that's very relatable. I do 75 plus shows a year in barbecue restaurants and on a bus or whatever, all kinds of weird places. And yeah, it's a constant struggle to go into a venue. I also do these road hell gig things, which I'm sure you did way back in the day, where you go to like the middle of North Dakota and they've never run a comedy show before, and they've only talked to somebody on a phone, and I just show up. And, I keep some equipment in my car just in case. And usually it's an uphill battle to convince people that lighting matters, sound matters, etc.
Well, part of it is, even when part of what leads to that misconception is when you watch a great comedian, the best comedian is basically just a chucklehead talking, some knucklehead talking. George Burns, I was a hippie guy talking. Bill Cosby, that guy in a sweater, he's talking, and all that kind of stuff, So like they think like, oh yeah, it's like they just think you're funny. You're a comedian because you're funny, and that's all there is to it. Mm-hmm. And anybody who isn't doing well isn't because they're not funny. What they don't realize, the better the comedian, the more the conditions have to be right, because there's with like mediocre comics seem to do very well on cruise ships, because mediocre comics are less susceptible to the things that could derail their act. If you have a great comic, he's going up there and knowingly and methodically explaining who he is or who she is. The beginning lines are opening the show for a reason. And if a comic has a stylized approach to comedy, whether like nuanced one-liners or like witty observations or maybe kind of like a weird character, you as an audience have to be paying complete attention. And what happens is, on the cruise lines, you have well-intentioned, very friendly and very outgoing hosts who host the shows, members of the cruise staff who have got no training in how to host a show, and they equate hosting a show with hosting the various activities they host on the show, where they want to get the audience all hyped up and crazy and being wild. And so when you have a comic who really doesn't open strong or doesn't really know who he is, and they go up and go, "Hey, what's going on?" You can do that and not be vulnerable. But when you put out your comedy and you're relying on the audience catching every nuance so you can snap that punchline, you need silence, And so one of the good things about Carnival is they listen to comedians over the years. And we comedians, whether it's being successful in getting the company to help set us up for success, or even if it's just us building a relationship with the sound techs and the hosts, and politely, after going back over and over again, building a rapport and just getting them to do what we want to do just for our show. I'll have hosts, I'll ask them to not ask the audience any questions, because when you don't have two opening acts and you're the only comic, and most audiences, even the biggest rednecks on cruise ships, own their own businesses, are millionaires, whatever, successful construction workers or whatever. So everybody's smart, but they're not comedy savvy. And so
Right.
the biggest Yahoo, with his John Deere cap and his cut off plaid shirt, knows how to behave at a job interview, knows how to behave at church, knows how to behave at his big mama's house for Thanksgiving, knows how to react at a sports bar, knows how to act at a funeral. So what good hosts and good comedy club management does for an audience of people from all these different backgrounds is they provide the social context and give the social clues that teach that audience how to behave. If you present the show as a theatrical experience that you have to pay attention to, the audience will behave like that. If you tell them it's a hootenanny, that's how they're going to behave.
Yeah.
And that's why some, like, I feel like some bar shows, if they would just make it a little bit difficult for themselves at first by disabusing the audience of the assumption that it's going to be a free for all, and maybe take a little pushback in the beginning. If they educate their audience and tell them this is playtime is after this, we're gonna have the wet t-shirt contest in an hour. Let's just do the show. The audiences are going to enjoy the show more, and I see that when some of the hosts I work with on the cruise ships take my advice and do what I ask them, and they see the increase in the attention span of the audience, and that as the comic gets bigger laughs, and they get better compliments, and people tell them how much they like the show, they're able to see it.
Yeah.
But comedy looks so easy. I once had a cruise director say to me, like, or a manager said to me, if a cruise director can do his debarkation talk in front of hundreds of people with a row of crying babies in the front row, why can't the comedian do his act with a bunch of crying babies?
Yeah.
You don't see the cruise director telling people to put their phones away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the biggest battle in booking comedy shows is people not thinking there's more to it than the comedy.
Yeah.
And so what I realize is it's everybody's, like you were talking about those hell gigs you went to. What I find so puzzling is somebody booked that show. Somebody like got that account. And so like if I got an account and I was going to have comedy there, I would think, okay, I don't want to like go find another club to do comedy in a month. I want this to be like 10 years worth of income.
Yeah.
How about I spend 2 hours having lunch with the owners and explaining how to run a room?
Well, part of the problem is they live 1,000 miles away usually at the worst gigs. They never visit in person. But yeah, heard. I want to ask a booking specific question and then get into dry bar a little bit. And I loved all the cruise stuff. Thank you. Can you, going way back, generically, the question I want to ask is, what was a really exciting gig you booked that you were just thrilled about? And if you want to, maybe you could let us know like when you got into cruise ships and how that happened, if it's an interesting story.
Well, the best, I think the best story is kind of like a hybrid of the two. Like, see, I got out of stand-up comedy. It was actually the highlight was like a non-comedy booking of booking my new career. I was on the road from 1987, fall of 1987, through the summer of 2004. And in 2002, I worked for cruises, but back then they didn't have the same understanding and love for the comedians as they do now. And now, the Carnival program is, run kind of like of a comedy chain, and to the extent that a big corporation can, they know what they're doing. But back in the day, they didn't. And so I was getting bad reviews because I had one bad review. I wasn't getting any work. And all the clubs, I couldn't get booked in clubs anymore. It was like it was in 2004 when the bottom fell out of the industry again, of the club market. And so my mom talked to my cousin who worked at American Greetings She worked in I forgot where she worked, like marketing or something, or like like in deliveries. And her husband worked in marketing. And she said, can you talk to somebody there and see, like, Jeff needs to take a break from comedy and get his life back together. It's too hard. Maybe you can get him a job driving the cars around in a truck. He likes to drive. He likes being in a car. And he can drive and he goes, all right, I guess I can ask, but and so my cousin's husband said, well, what does your son do again? And he goes, he's a stand-up comedian. He goes, and you want him to drive trucks? Why don't you just go get him a writing job? So because of my mom trying to get me a job, like on the loading docks or driving one of the car trucks, I ended up getting an interview and then getting a job as a salaried writer with a 401k and a health plan and everything. And I found myself doing my last gig. It was at an old Eagles club in downtown Lorain. And that gig, knowing that I was leaving stand-up behind, but going on to an extension of my career as a writer, that was a great gig. And but then I got laid off after 2 years, and I had no prospects. I couldn't get booked as a comedian anymore, and I almost got hired at Andrews McMeel Publishing in Kansas City, and I almost got an interview with Hallmark, but I didn't get it. So I called up Carnival and said, hey, could I be a cruise director? A lot of comedians have become cruise directors. And so I was on my 40th birthday. My career had gone from going to be an up-and-coming comedy writer to my career being over. And for my 40th birthday, my parents bought me a suit at Sears with their credit card and a haircut. And the next day, I had a job working in a mailroom for a law firm for $10 an hour, and then $8 an hour ushering at the comedy club downtown Cleveland I used to headline. And so I after like a year of that, I got the gig becoming a cruise director. It takes like around 4 years. So I put everything in storage, and at 42 years of age, I went to work for Carnival, and one night, so this was 2 years into my training, I was in San Diego on a ship called the Carnival Elation. And because of my stand-up comedy experience, my cruise director had me hosting all the comedy shows. And over a course of 2 years, I developed an opening act again, partially new stuff, partially stuff that I can remember from my old act. And I would, at Hilarities, being an usher, I helped with the setup of the room, the policing of the audience, the hospitality to the comedians, and And one night, the night that I got accepted to work for a Carnival, I was at Hilarities Comedy Club, and it was 2007. It was Valentine's Day. And the headliner couldn't make it into town because his plane from Baltimore was snowed in, and the feature act couldn't make it because he couldn't drive in from Pittsburgh. And the MC was coming up from Columbus, and he couldn't. So what they did is there was one of the MCs on the roster was in the audience. They had him host the show. I was an usher. They had me do 15. My friend Tim, he was a waiter, and when it was his turn, he put down his tray and his apron on the side of the stage. He went up, and the box office kid, Lee, he was a comedian, so he came into the show, and then then at the end of the night, I said, "Hey, welcome to career night here at Hilarities," and so I brought all that experience, even doing stand-up again, and learning how to run a room, to Carnival with me. And I applied it towards their late-night comedy shows in the back lounge. And after 2 years, when I was about ready to be promoted to assistant cruise director, a comedian by the name of Lance Montalto, who is a good friend of mine and a great ship comic from Vegas, he forgot his passport. He forgot his passport in the glove box of his car in the Amtrak station in Los Angeles, and he got to San Diego and realized he couldn't get on the ship. So I was wearing my little carnival uniform, my red, white, and blue shorts and shirt, hosting a cornhole competition and a trivia competition at the same time. And I got a call on the ship's on my cell phone, the ship's cell phone, and the cruise director saying the comedian couldn't make it. Take the rest of the evening off. Show up at 10 o'clock backstage in your suit and tie. You're going to be our comedian.
Wow.
So I went on stage that night, destroyed, killed with 25 minutes. I headlined the Welcome Aboard show. And the cruise director, who I'd been doing skits and everything with for the past 2 years, we wrote our own comedy bits and we did our own comedy little videos and about the ship's tours and everything. He wrote a performance evaluation on me as a comedian and sent it into the home office. And because of that, they were getting ready to put a comedy club on their newest ship called the Carnival Dream, which was coming out in the fall of 2009. And they didn't know who was going to help run the program. So they go, wow, this guy is a comedian. He's also on track to be a cruise director. And he's been with us for 2 years. And he was a fly-on for 2 years. And that led to my being Carnival's first comedy club manager, helping run the program for 8 years, doing almost 8,000 shows, 20 sets a week on a ship for like 14 months at a time. And that led to me becoming a full-time ship comic. So I know that's really not a comedy club booking thing.
No, that's what a great story. That's incredible, Jeff. That's amazing. I didn't know any of that. We've talked a lot about comedy, and I didn't know. I knew about the greeting card thing, but after that, I didn't know. That's really cool. That's amazing.
And then, of course, as a stand-up, I have all the great stories of working with my idols. You know, meeting and I worked with Tim Allen, and we went to see that movie Rent-A-Cop with Eliza Minnelli and Burt Reynolds, and the film.
They were in the movie. They weren't with you watching the movie. Okay.
Yeah, we went and watched the movie, and this was 1987 in Jacksonville, Florida, and the movie broke. Whatever, they had to stop the movie, bring the house lights on.
Yeah.
And Tim Allen stood up in the front of the theater and did 20 minutes.
No way.
And then handed out passes to the show.
Oh, that's amazing. That was in Cleveland?
This was in Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And then when after my first set as the MC, he came up to me and he goes, "Wow, you're a funny young man. You're gonna be a star before I am." You know. So the joke I do is, now you know why Tim hosted Tool Time and not the Psychic Friends Network.
Nice.
Yeah.
We got a question from online. I want to throw this out here. Jeff, what is your best advice for getting better? This is a regular viewer. I'm going to say, for context, this is at comedy, and I'm going to guess that this guy in North Carolina has been doing comedy 3 to 5 years, just based on
getting better as a stand-up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, don't ask me about like the booking side, because this right here, this podcast is the booking highlight of my year so far.
Well, we're only 6 days in.
Yeah. But here, it's pretty simple. Stand-up comedy, when you think about it, it's pretty simple. Like I love how Jay Leno would say, "Tell jokes, get check, cash check." Well, I say, write joke, tell joke, get laughs. But the most important part of that is the first one. The most important thing about being a stand-up comedian is the writing. It's the jokes. It is the jokes. And one of the things you need to keep in mind as a young comedian, I'm not sure where this comic lives.
North Carolina.
Right, North Carolina. One of the problems with all these great local scenes that are all around the country, and I see with my scene, it's amazing, supportive scene. Everybody, there's a show every night someplace, and I still go and do these shows, and they welcome me with open arms, because I'm so proud of these guys, and I love talking shop, and I love giving comics advice. And so when you give comics advice as an older comic, you no longer seem like, this guy thinks he's too big or whatever. And so they put me on stage, and after almost 40 years going on stage and trying out new material, is important to me. It's almost like getting a paycheck. It's just a different, like, I wouldn't turn down work to go work at a club, but when I don't have work, I'm still guaranteeing my future income and future bookings by constantly trying to generate new material. And one of the problems when you're a young comic today in these do-it-yourself scenes where everybody books their own room and everybody works each other's rooms is when every comic books a room, no comic on that bill wants to risk not being able to work the other comic's room by giving them advice that might piss them off or hurt their feelings. So what happens is you have a lot of comics going up there and just talking out their ass and not saying anything funny, or just like just going up with horribly written jokes, or just really lazy. They didn't put the work in, and they walk off stage and they get a fist bump.
Yeah.
When you get the fist bump, you think, oh, I did fine. And then the fact that you didn't get laughs, that's the audience fault. There's something wrong with the audience. They don't get you because you're hip. But you have to realize that if you watch some really good specials, you'll see like Tom Segura, Christopher Titus, any great comic that has a special on Netflix, they'll say something really nuanced, whatever, and it'll get a huge laugh. You know why? It wasn't because it was clever or it was smart. It was because it was smart and clever, but it got a laugh because it was perfectly written. And 9 times out of 10, if an audience doesn't laugh, that's because it's too hip. It means the joke was broken. But most young comics don't get enough feedback to learn all the formulas and the ways to correctly present their material. So they get a false sense of security that stops them from growing and learning how to write. So you have to learn, and you have to like develop an inner compass and realize that just because nobody told you sucked doesn't mean you didn't. No one's going to give you, so you have to like listen to your shows, and you have to learn how to find out what is the perfect laugh and what is not a perfect laugh. Because if an audience is on your side, they'll give you a sympathetic laugh.
Yeah.
And especially they'll fall into your rhythm.
Yeah,
and that's why if your material isn't strong and you don't have that right crowd, you get silence because you're not surprising the audience with well-crafted punchlines that come out of left field. And here's a great example of how the writing is so important. I have a joke that I tried it once and it didn't work that great. And then I tried it at the new joke show and I rewrote it, and now it kills. And the joke was, here's the joke. The joke is, most comedians my age, I have nothing to fall back on, no plan B. My friends are like, well, you can always wait tables. Could I? Do I look like someone who'll be right back with your side of ranch? No, you're eating your wings dry, Trevor. And so Trevor, the original way I did it was, no, you're eating your wings dry, bitch. Now that's the instinctive, like comedian smartass way. But the bitch part was a little too harsh. Yeah. And I realized that turn wasn't getting the applause break or the big laugh. But when I changed it to Trevor, I'm being like a smart aleck towards the kind of guy you would imagine at TJF asking for ranch.
Yeah.
That I took a joke from using a swear word, a mild swear word, to a perfectly picked name, and now the joke gets a pop. And that's what comedy's about. It's about every single syllable, every single word, and so you have to learn joke writing. It's all there's an old adage: if it's not on the page, it can't be on the stage. So it's got to be on the page before it's on the stage. So learn everything you can about the techniques of writing jokes, and that's why so many comedians, present company not included, it used to be very hard to be a gatekeeper in comedy, because unless you're a comedian yourself, it's very hard to articulate to comedians why they're not right for your room. But one of the best things for club owners and television bookers and cruise ship bookers about the modern, the online, comedy industry is now they have perfect excuses for people. They go, oh, we only book comics with podcasts, or you have to have so many views on your YouTube videos. Oh, you gotta have so many followers to work our room. And
Yeah.
so all the comics that go out and they get, oh, all I need is a podcast. But the whole thing is, if your stand-up's not great, your podcast isn't gonna be that funny.
Mm.
If your stand-up isn't fully developed, your screenplays won't be well developed. And if you don't know how to write a joke, you're not going to know how to write a 3-minute viral video.
Right.
You know, so it's like, I would say, first concentrate on the writing and develop as a comic. And then when you go into these other areas, you're going to bring all those skills as a comic and make your podcast, your screenplay, your videos hilarious and set yourself apart. But it all starts with joke writing. And the best comics that you see on television that have no way of articulating how they got good, you know, they can't go on a podcast and deconstruct their acts. There's some comics who are technicians. Like, I'm a technician. I don't have any natural ability. It's all learned skill. It's all craft. It's all something I had to learn, you know, and I can go on stage and show flashes of brilliance and have great, like, crowd work. But when I do crowd work, or when I even at the mall, or when I make somebody laugh in a dentist chair, you know, I'm writing jokes very quickly. I'm making associations really fast. It all comes to writing. And that's another thing is don't I hope this guy didn't move already from North Carolina. Like, that's it. I'm not going to follow him. I hope he's still there. Like, that's the thing about crowd work. Crowd work is basically writing jokes on the spot. And it's not an accident that the best crowd work comedians are also the best joke writers. David Tell is legendary, but he's also an amazing joke writer. Jeff Ross is legendary crowd work, but he's a great joke writer. So if you can't write a joke in 6 months, if you can't perfect a joke in 6 months, how are you going to perfect a joke in 6 seconds?
Yeah.
You know, and so some comics look at crowd work as being the easy way. It's only easier is that you're less vulnerable, and writing good material is vulnerable because it's so easy for that joke not to work, and you're standing there, you know, very vulnerable. But when you do dirty comedy, prop comedy, crowd work, that's way harder because it has to be very, very good. So it all comes down to the joke writing, and most great comedians that write the best jokes, some of them can't articulate. They just say, oh, believe in yourself, or just keep going up every night. They can't tell you, okay, this is how you create the setup. This is how many beats you need. This is how you do this. This is how you figure out what your point of view is as a joke. They can't tell you that. Guys like Mark Norman can, or Joe List probably could. But so like Kevin Hart couldn't tell you how to write how he writes his jokes, you know. But every comedian that is famous, their acts adhere to the laws of comedy physics. It means everything has to be comedically correct. The jokes have to be right, your point of view, your character. So read every book you can about stand-up and about writing, and that's the best way to progress, because you have to have a certain time and grade. You got to become a yellow belt, green belt, brown belt, black belt. But if you don't actually learn anything, you're never going to progress to the stages of that you need to develop. And also, well, one last thing I can say, when you see Bill Burr turning over an hour every year, Tom Segura turning an hour every year, what they don't tell you is it took them 10 years to get that first hour. And taking 10 years to build that first hour special is what you can't turn over an hour of material every year until you learn how to take your bits and develop them to their final form. And so these guys know that. They know how to take a bit from its gestation, its seed, and then build it to a whole, almost like a one-man show, where the Kyle Kinane knows how to take these stories that happened to him and flesh them out to these grand closing 20-minute bits. But he had to spend 10 years not turning over material, developing all this material. So be inspired by all these amazing comics that you see on a podcast, but try to remember that they are at a level way above you, and try to like master the basics first.
That's an incredible answer. That's amazing. Thank you. We're kind of out of time. I think it will take years to book you again, but we should talk about Dry Bar next time
Yeah,
and
and
some
I'll
of the things
still be,
talk about.
I'll be, and in that year, I'll still be talking.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I can track you down in a diner or at a comedy club sometime. We can
Uh-huh.
talk shop some more. This was a
How,
blast.
the guy like that answer? Did it help him at
He,
all? Or
he did say thanks. So we got to thank you. And I'll make sure he saw it. I'm going to say I have his email. I'll send him a bookmarked link to like the point where you started talking. And I bet he's going to share it with a lot of people. That was some really good wisdom there. Thank you,
and
Jeff.
I got something I got to tell you after this. I don't know if we can stay in the
Okay.
room.
Yeah. I can stick
Okay.
around.
All right.
And yeah, I just want to say thank you. Thanks. I mean, I've known you for a while now, and you've always been very generous with your time, and I really appreciate it.
But
And
this is a great this is a great show. I've been
yeah.
watching the clips and everything. It's great.
Oh,
I'm
cool.
glad to be
Everybody
part of it.
else, tune in next Monday. We'll be back with somebody else, and hopefully we'll get Jeff on again in the future and wrap this up now. And then yeah, stick around for a second, Jeff.